Maya walked quickly through the streets, her worn sneakers hitting the pavement in steady steps. The city was alive with movement, even though the day had already turned dark. Neon signs blinked, cars rushed by with their horns blaring, and people pushed past each other with little care. Maya had just finished her long shift at the diner, her apron still folded in her bag. Her legs ached, but her heart felt light because she knew she had done her best to keep her smile on all day, no matter how difficult some customers had been. She thought only of reaching home, resting her head on her pillow, and preparing for another hard day tomorrow. She crossed the first corner quickly, weaving around a group of people staring at their phones. As she made her way down the block, she noticed a figure at the edge of the sidewalk. An elderly man, dressed in a simple suit, stood near the curb. At first, she thought he was just waiting for a cab, but then she saw him stagger. His hand reached for something that wasn't there. His foot slipped forward, and for a terrifying second, his weight tilted toward the street. A bus roared past, inches away from him. Without thinking, Maya ran forward. Her bag swung against her hip as she pushed past the crowd. She reached the man just as his knees buckled. With all the strength her tired arms could manage, she pulled him backward, away from the curb. They stumbled together, nearly falling, but she kept her grip on his arm until she guided him safely onto a bench that sat under a flickering street lamp. The man's breathing was heavy, his chest rising and falling as though the simple act of standing had drained all the strength from his body. His silver hair was neatly combed, though now it looked ruffled from the sudden fall. Maya reached into her bag and pulled out her water bottle. "Here, please drink this," she said softly, holding it out with both hands. The man looked at her with eyes that carried wisdom and something else, a kind of strength she could not name. He took the bottle and sipped slowly, nodding in thanks. His voice was calm but tired when he spoke. "Thank you, young lady. You may have just saved me." Maya shook her head quickly. "Anyone would have done the same. You nearly fell into traffic." But deep inside, she knew not everyone would have reacted. She had seen people glance at him before she reached him, but they had continued walking. In the city, people often looked away when someone needed help. Maya couldn't do that. She was raised to believe that kindness was never wasted. She sat beside him, worried he might try to get up too soon. The bench was old, the paint peeling, but it gave him a place to catch his breath. The man sat tall, even though he was clearly tired. There was something about the way he held himself, as if he was used to being in control of a room or speaking to large crowds. His suit was plain but well made, and his shoes, though scuffed, had the shine of someone who still cared about appearance. "Are you alone?" Maya asked carefully. He nodded. "I often walk by myself. It clears the mind. Tonight, I may have pushed myself too far." Maya smiled gently. "That happens. Maybe you should take it slow for a while." The man's lips curved in a small smile. "You remind me of my granddaughter. Always telling me to slow down, though she's miles away now." Maya laughed softly. "Maybe she's right. Sometimes we don't realize how much our bodies need rest until they remind us." The man chuckled, his voice warm and kind. "True. And you, young lady, what were you rushing for? You looked like you were carrying the world in your steps." Maya hesitated, not used to strangers asking about her life. Yet something about his tone made her feel safe. "Just heading home after work. Long day, nothing exciting." "Work," he repeated thoughtfully. "And what is it you do?" "I'm a waitress at a diner," Maya replied. "It's nothing special, but it helps me pay the bills." "Nothing special?" he asked, raising his brows. "Keeping people fed, even with a smile, is more meaningful than you think." His words surprised her. Most people barely noticed servers, except to complain when their order took too long. She felt her cheeks warm at the way he spoke to her with such respect. They sat together for a while. The city moved around them, people walked past, taxis honked, music from a street performer drifted down the block. But for Maya, the world seemed to pause. She noticed the man's steady breathing slowly return to normal. His eyes no longer looked heavy with exhaustion. Instead, they glowed with sharpness, as though he had regained energy simply by resting. "Do you live nearby?" she asked. "Yes," he said simply, not giving details. "Just a short walk away. But I am in no hurry. I find myself enjoying our conversation." Maya smiled. "Me too." They spoke about small things, about the weather, about the way the city never truly slept, about how hard it was to find quiet moments anymore. The man listened more than he spoke, asking her questions that made her reflect on her own life. He asked about her family, and she told him about her younger brother who wanted to be an engineer, and about her mother who worked nights at the hospital. She didn't share too much, but enough for him to understand that life wasn't easy for her. "And what about you?" Maya asked finally. "What do you do?" The man paused, his gaze distant for a moment. Then he smiled kindly. "I work in public service. It keeps me busy." Maya nodded. She thought of teachers, social workers, or even volunteers. She didn't press further. To her, he was just a man she had helped, someone who needed her kindness. Nothing more. After a while, he stood slowly, testing his balance. Maya rose with him, ready to catch him again if he stumbled. But he steadied himself and gave her a small bow of gratitude. "You have done more for me tonight than you realize," he said. "And I thank you for not looking away." Maya shrugged lightly. "It's what anyone should do." "Perhaps," he said softly. "But not everyone does." She walked with him for a short distance, making sure he was safe. When he finally insisted that he was fine and would make it the rest of the way alone, she let him go, though not without one last reminder. "Please, take care of yourself," she said. He gave her a smile that seemed to hold a secret she couldn't name. "I will. And you, young lady, keep walking your path. The world needs people like you." Maya didn't understand why his words felt so heavy, almost like a blessing. She watched him disappear into the night, his figure steady now, his steps purposeful. She shook her head and continued her way home, unaware of how much this single act of kindness would soon change her life. For Maya, it was just another night, another small good deed. She had no idea that the elderly man she saved wasn't just any passerby but someone whose name carried weight in places she could not imagine. The next morning, Maya woke up to the sound of her alarm, the same sharp tone that started every day. Her body felt heavy, her arms sore from carrying trays the night before, but she pulled herself out of bed. Her small apartment was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. She glanced toward the couch where her younger brother, Jordan, had fallen asleep with his book still open. He was studying late again, chasing his dream of becoming an engineer. Maya smiled softly as she covered him with a blanket before getting ready for work. Her life followed a routine, simple but tiring. She went to the diner, worked long shifts, and came home to rest. Yet that night kept returning to her mind. The image of the elderly man almost falling into the street, his tired eyes, and the way he had spoken to her lingered in her thoughts. He had carried himself with a certain dignity that wasn't common. He hadn't been like other older people she sometimes helped at the diner. There was something different about him. At work, she found herself distracted. As she poured coffee for customers, she replayed their conversation in her mind. His words had been thoughtful, as if he wasn't just making small talk but truly listening. He had asked her about her life in a way that made her feel seen, not invisible like she usually did while rushing between tables. She didn't know who he was or why he seemed so wise, but she felt she might never forget him. Later that evening, Maya left the diner again. The city was noisy as usual, but her heart felt strangely lighter, as if her encounter had left her with quiet strength. As she walked past the same corner where she had helped him, she glanced at the bench. It was empty, but she could almost picture the man sitting there, steadying his breath, speaking gently to her. She shook her head with a small smile, not knowing why she cared so much. 2 nights later, fate placed them in the same place again. Maya was walking home when she noticed the familiar figure under the streetlight. The old man was sitting on the bench this time, his hands folded neatly in his lap. He looked up as she approached, and his face brightened with recognition. "You again," he said warmly. Maya laughed. "I could say the same. I didn't expect to see you here again." "Nor I," he admitted. "But perhaps life has its own plans. May I walk with you this time?" Maya nodded. "Of course." They walked slowly together, side by side. He seemed steadier than before, his steps careful but strong. As they moved, they spoke again, the conversation flowing as easily as water down a stream. He asked about her dreams, and she told him how she wanted to become a nurse someday. She admitted it was hard because money was tight, and she had to work long hours just to keep her family going. He listened quietly, nodding with every word, his face showing both concern and admiration. "You have a strong spirit," he said finally. "And that spirit will carry you further than you know. Do not let hardship convince you that you cannot rise." Maya felt a lump in her throat. People rarely spoke to her like that. Most only saw a waitress, a tired young woman serving coffee. But he spoke as though he already saw her as the nurse she dreamed of becoming, as though he could see her potential shining even when she doubted it herself. They reached another corner, and he paused. "I will not take more of your time tonight," he said kindly. "But thank you for your company. You may not realize it, but these talks are worth much more to me than you can imagine." Maya smiled gently. "I should be the one thanking you. It feels good to talk to someone who listens." He nodded with a small bow before going his way. As she watched him leave, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that she had just spoken with someone important, someone whose presence carried more weight than he revealed. Yet to her, he was simply Mr. Harris, an old man who needed a friend. Over the following week, Maya's routine shifted slightly. She found herself half hoping she might see him again after work. Sometimes she did, and sometimes she didn't, but whenever they crossed paths, they spoke. Their conversations grew deeper. He told her stories about the world, about choices people make, about the value of integrity and courage. He never once boasted or gave away much about himself, but his words revealed a mind that had seen and understood much. One evening, he asked her a simple question. "What would you change if you had power?" Maya thought for a long moment. "I'd make sure people had chances. Real chances. Like education that didn't depend on money, or jobs that didn't judge you for where you came from. I don't think people should have to fight so hard just to survive. It makes life unfair." His expression softened as though her answer touched something deep in him. "That is a wise answer, Maya. Many with power forget those words." She blinked. "You say that like you know a lot of powerful people." He smiled faintly. "Perhaps I do. Or perhaps I've simply seen enough life to know the truth." Maya left that night with his words echoing in her heart. She didn't understand why their meetings mattered so much, but she felt herself growing braver. She started believing that her dream of becoming a nurse was not as impossible as it once seemed. Then came the morning when everything changed. Maya was at the diner, wiping down a counter, when a group of customers pointed at the television mounted on the wall. A reporter's voice filled the room. Federal Councilman Richard Harris collapsed briefly earlier this week, but thanks to the quick action of a bystander, he was safely assisted. The councilman has since returned to work but expressed his gratitude to the young woman who came to his aid. Though her identity is not yet known, the councilman described her as a symbol of compassion. Maya froze, the rag slipping from her hand. On the screen, there he was, the same man she had walked home, the same man who had listened to her dreams. Councilman Richard Harris. A powerful figure who shaped laws and decisions that touched the entire country. Her mouth went dry. She replayed every conversation in her mind. All this time, she had spoken with him as though he were just another kind stranger. She had told him about her struggles, about her hopes, and even dared to laugh and joke with him. Now she realized that she had unknowingly poured her heart out to a man whose voice carried weight in the highest places of government. Her co-workers noticed her pale face. "Maya, are you okay?" one asked. She nodded weakly, but her heart was racing. She couldn't believe it. The man she saved wasn't just an elderly stranger. He was a leader, a figure people respected, someone who could influence lives far beyond her own. She sank onto a stool, whispering to herself, "What have I gotten myself into?" The rest of the day blurred by. Customers came and went, plates clattered, but Maya barely noticed. Her mind was consumed by the thought of Councilman Harris. She wondered if he would recognize her again. She wondered if people would find out who she was. And most of all, she wondered what this meant for her future. That night, as she walked home, she looked around the same streets with new eyes. The city seemed different, larger somehow. She thought of how strange life was, how one simple act of kindness had tied her life to a man she never imagined meeting. She didn't know what would come next, but deep inside, she sensed her world was about to change forever. The news replayed in Maya's head over and over again. Councilman Richard Harris. The name sounded so formal, so powerful, so far from the gentle man who had sat with her on the bench under the flickering streetlight. She couldn't stop thinking about the way he had spoken to her with kindness and patience, as if he had all the time in the world, even though he clearly carried responsibilities that stretched across the nation. That evening, she walked home in a daze. Her brother Jordan noticed her quietness as soon as she entered the apartment. "What's wrong, Maya?" he asked, closing his notebook. She hesitated, unsure of how to explain. "Remember the old man I told you I helped the other night? The one who almost fell?" "Yeah," Jordan nodded. She lowered her voice. "He's not just some old man. He's Councilman Harris. The one from the news. The one everyone's talking about." Jordan's mouth fell open. "Wait, what? You mean you saved an actual federal councilman?" Maya nodded, her hands trembling slightly. "I didn't know. I treated him like any other person. I even told him about my life, about wanting to be a nurse." Jordan leaned back, stunned. "Maya, do you realize what this means? This isn't just anybody. He's important. He makes decisions that affect millions of people." "I know," she whispered. "That's what scares me. What if I embarrassed myself? What if I said the wrong thing?" But deep inside, another thought pressed at her heart. She hadn't treated him as a leader or a man of power. She had treated him as human, as someone who needed help. And maybe, just maybe, that was exactly why he had spoken to her with such warmth. The following day at work, whispers followed her. A customer pointed at her, murmuring, "That's her, the girl who saved the councilman." Someone must have recognized her from the blurry video footage shown on television. Though Maya tried to stay focused on refilling coffee cups and carrying trays, she could feel the weight of people's eyes on her. When her shift ended, her manager pulled her aside. "You should be careful, Maya. Reporters might start coming around asking for your story. Keep your head down." Maya nodded, though her heart beat faster. The thought of reporters finding her terrified her. She didn't want attention. She only wanted to live her life quietly, work hard, and chase her dream. But fate had other plans. 2 days later, it happened. She was leaving the diner when a group of reporters with cameras approached her on the sidewalk. "Miss, are you the woman who helped Councilman Harris?" one asked, shoving a microphone toward her. Maya froze. She wanted to run, but her legs wouldn't move. I just helped someone who needed it," she stammered. Another reporter spoke quickly. "Did you know who he was at the time?" "No," Maya answered honestly. "I didn't know. I only saw a man who needed help. That's all." The cameras flashed, voices overlapped, and Maya felt dizzy from all the attention. She pushed her way through, finally managing to escape into the subway station. Her heart pounded in her ears. She had never asked for any of this. That night, she sat with Jordan in silence. He tried to cheer her up. "Maybe it's not so bad. People need stories like this. It shows kindness still exists." Maya sighed. "But I don't want to be on the news. I don't want people staring at me." Before Jordan could reply, a knock came at their door. Maya opened it cautiously, and to her shock, 2 men in suits stood there. "Miss Maya Williams?" one asked politely. "Yes," she said slowly. "We're here on behalf of Councilman Harris. He would like to meet with you personally." Maya's breath caught in her chest. She exchanged a glance with Jordan, who looked just as surprised. He wants to meet me." "Yes, ma'am. If you're available, we can arrange transportation tomorrow morning." Maya nodded numbly, hardly able to process what was happening. After they left, she sank onto the couch, her hands shaking. "This is real," Jordan whispered. "He actually wants to see you." Maya spent the night worrying. What if she wasn't dressed properly? What if she said something foolish? What if she embarrassed herself in front of someone so important? She barely slept, tossing and turning until the sun rose. The next morning, a sleek black car pulled up outside their small apartment. Maya wore her best blouse and skirt, though she still felt underdressed. Jordan gave her a reassuring squeeze on the shoulder before she stepped into the car. The ride took her to a tall building downtown, one she had only ever passed on the bus. Security guards in uniform stood at the entrance, nodding as the car approached. Maya was escorted inside, where polished marble floors and golden light made her feel like she had stepped into another world. Her heart raced as she was guided into a large office. There, standing tall behind a desk, was Councilman Harris. He looked healthier than the night she had first seen him, his suit pressed, his posture commanding. Yet when he saw her, his face broke into a warm smile. "Maya," he said gently, stepping forward. "It's so good to see you again." She blinked in disbelief. You remember me?" "Of course I do," he said. "How could I forget the young woman who pulled me back to safety and sat with me when no one else would?" Tears stung Maya's eyes. She hadn't realized how much those words meant until now. He gestured for her to sit, and she did, though her hands fidgeted nervously in her lap. Around them, aides and assistants moved quietly, but Harris's attention stayed firmly on her. "You must forgive the sudden attention," he said. "When the press learned of what happened, they insisted on telling the story. But I wanted to thank you personally, away from the cameras. You treated me as a man, not a title. That is a rare gift in my world." Maya swallowed hard. "I only did what anyone should have done." Harris shook his head. "No, Maya. Many walked by. Only you stopped. That makes all the difference." For the first time, Maya truly understood the weight of her actions. She hadn't just saved him from a fall. She had reminded him, and perhaps the world, of the power of compassion. As their meeting ended, Harris promised they would speak again. He asked her to keep in touch, even hinting at wanting to hear more about her dreams of nursing. Maya left the building in a daze, her mind spinning with everything that had happened. By the time she returned home, Jordan was waiting anxiously at the window. "Well?" he asked the moment she walked through the door. Maya sank onto the couch, her heart still racing. "He remembered me, Jordan. He actually remembered me. And he thanked me, not like a councilman, but like a person." Jordan grinned. "I told you, Maya. This is big. Your life just changed." Maya leaned back, staring at the ceiling. She wasn't sure where this path would lead, but she knew one thing for certain: her story with Councilman Harris was only beginning. The next few days passed in a blur for Maya. She tried to carry on with her routine, but her life no longer felt normal. Everywhere she went, people seemed to recognize her face. Customers at the diner whispered, neighbors smiled knowingly, and strangers sometimes stopped to thank her. She felt overwhelmed by the sudden attention, but she reminded herself that her actions had come from a place of kindness, not for praise. One evening, a letter arrived at her apartment. It was on thick paper, stamped with an official seal. Her brother Jordan opened the envelope with wide eyes and handed it to her carefully, as if it were something precious. Inside was a formal invitation to attend an event at City Hall, where Councilman Harris planned to publicly thank her. Maya stared at the elegant script, her hands trembling. "Me? At City Hall?" she whispered. Jordan grinned. "You saved a federal councilman. Of course they want you there. This is your chance, Maya. Don't be scared. You deserve it." She wasn't sure she believed that. She wasn't used to fancy events, and the idea of standing before important people made her stomach twist. But deep inside, she knew she had to go. This wasn't just about her, it was about showing that compassion still mattered in the world. The day of the event arrived quickly. Maya borrowed a simple dress from her neighbor, a kind woman who insisted she wanted to help. The dress was navy blue, modest but elegant, and when Maya looked at herself in the mirror, she hardly recognized the young woman staring back. Jordan gave her an encouraging smile. "You look like you belong there," he said proudly. A car arrived to take her to City Hall. When she stepped out, the building seemed larger than life, its tall pillars and wide steps glowing in the afternoon sun. Reporters crowded outside, cameras flashing as she walked past. She kept her eyes forward, her heart pounding with every step. Inside, the grand hall buzzed with energy. Politicians, officials, and community leaders filled the space, their voices echoing beneath the high ceiling. Maya felt small among them, but she lifted her chin and reminded herself why she was there. She had done nothing more than show kindness, and that was something no crowd could take away from her. When the event began, Councilman Harris stepped onto the stage. He looked strong and dignified, his voice carrying across the room with ease. He spoke first about the importance of compassion in a world too often divided. Then he paused, his eyes searching the audience until they found her. "Today, I stand before you alive and well because of the bravery of one young woman," he said firmly. She did not see a title or a position. She saw a man in need. She acted when others did not. And for that, I owe her my deepest gratitude. The audience broke into applause, and Maya felt her cheeks burn. She tried to shrink in her seat, but Harris smiled and extended his hand. "Maya Williams, would you please join me on stage?" Her legs felt heavy as she stood, but somehow she managed to walk forward. The applause grew louder, filling her ears, as she climbed the steps to the stage. Harris greeted her warmly, taking her hand with both of his. "This young woman," he said to the crowd, "reminds us all that kindness is not weakness but strength. She is proof that one act of compassion can make a difference." Maya's eyes filled with tears as the audience rose to their feet in a standing ovation. She never imagined herself standing in front of so many powerful people, let alone being honored by one of the nation's most respected leaders. For a moment, she forgot her fear and simply stood tall, holding on to the truth of what had brought her there, humanity. After the event ended, people crowded around her, offering handshakes and kind words. Some spoke of opportunities, others of scholarships and programs that might help her pursue her dream of becoming a nurse. Maya listened politely, but she felt overwhelmed. She was just a young woman from a small apartment, someone who worked hard every day to keep her family afloat. She never asked for any of this. Harris approached her later, away from the crowd. His voice softened, carrying none of the authority he had shown on stage. "You did wonderfully," he said. "I meant every word I spoke. You gave me more than safety that night, Maya. You reminded me why I serve." She looked at him, surprised. "What do you mean?" He sighed. "In politics, it's easy to lose sight of the people we're meant to help. The titles, the meetings, the endless debates, they can make us forget the simple truth that we are here to serve others. You, with your selflessness, reminded me of that truth." Maya swallowed hard, her chest tight with emotion. "I didn't do anything special. I just helped." "That," Harris said firmly, "is exactly why it was special." His words stayed with her long after the event ended. On the ride home, she thought about how strange life was. A week ago, she had been invisible, just another face in the crowd. Now, she was being recognized in places she never dreamed of entering. It didn't make sense, yet it also felt like something greater was at work. That night, as she sat with Jordan, she replayed the moment on stage in her mind. "Do you think this changes everything?" she asked quietly. Jordan smiled. "I think it already has. But the best part, Maya, is that you didn't change. You're still you. And that's why people admire you." The following days brought even more attention. News outlets told her story, calling her the diner waitress who saved a councilman. Some reporters wanted interviews, and organizations reached out with offers to support her education. Maya felt both grateful and cautious. She didn't want to be used as a symbol without meaning. She wanted her story to inspire real compassion, not just headlines. One afternoon, Harris called her directly. His voice was steady, carrying both authority and warmth. "Maya, I would like you to consider something. I want you to speak at a community event next week. Share your story, not for me, but for the people who need to hear it." Her heart skipped. "Me? Speak in front of people?" "Yes," he said gently. "They will listen to you, because you are one of them. Your voice carries truth. Don't be afraid." Maya hesitated, but something inside her told her to be brave. She agreed, though her nerves twisted tighter each day leading up to it. When the evening came, she stood on a small stage in front of a crowd of neighbors, students, and families. Her voice shook at first, but soon it grew steadier. She told them how she had seen a man who needed help, how she had acted without thinking, and how that simple choice had changed her life. She spoke about compassion, about the need to see one another not as strangers but as human beings. By the time she finished, the crowd erupted in applause. People lined up afterward to thank her, to share their own stories, and to promise they would carry her message forward. Maya realized then that her story wasn't just about her or even about Harris. It was about everyone who chose kindness when it mattered. As she walked home with Jordan that night, she felt a sense of purpose growing inside her. Her life had shifted in ways she could not have imagined, but she knew one thing for certain: her journey was only beginning, and compassion would guide her every step of the way. The weeks after the City Hall event were unlike anything Maya had ever experienced. She had gone from being a quiet young woman working long hours in a diner to someone whose name appeared in newspapers and whose face was shown on television. At first, it felt overwhelming. Reporters still tried to follow her sometimes, Neighbors asked for stories again and again, and strangers smiled at her on the street as though they had always known her. But slowly, Maya began to see the good in it. The attention wasn't just about her, it was about the message. Everywhere she went, people spoke about kindness. Parents told her that their children wanted to help more at school. Teachers shared her story in classrooms. Nurses and doctors told her that compassion was as important as medicine. Maya realized her small act had started something larger, a conversation about what it meant to care. One afternoon, she received another call from Councilman Harris. His voice carried the same steady warmth she had come to recognize. "Maya, I want to see you again. This time, not for a public event. I'd like to talk about your future." Her heart skipped a beat. She agreed, and a few days later, she found herself sitting once more in his office. The room was lined with bookshelves, filled with history and law, but Harris himself looked at her with the same gentle eyes she had first seen on the bench. "You have been given attention you did not ask for," he began. "And yet you have carried yourself with grace. I admire that. Now I want to ask you, Maya, what do you truly want?" She swallowed hard. "I want to become a nurse. It's been my dream for as long as I can remember. But it's hard, with money and time and everything else." Harris leaned forward. "Then let's make it possible. I have contacts in education and healthcare. There are scholarships, programs, and opportunities that you deserve. If you are willing, I will help open those doors." Tears filled Maya's eyes. She had never imagined someone like him offering such a thing. "You'd do that for me?" He nodded firmly. "Not just for you, Maya. For everyone you will help in the future. Your kindness saved me. Now let me help you carry that kindness to others." From that day on, things began to change. Maya was enrolled in a nursing program with full support. She studied harder than ever, balancing her classes with part-time work at the diner. Each late night of reading, each early morning of exams, she carried with her the memory of the night she saved Harris. It reminded her that no matter how tired she felt, she had the strength to keep going. Harris often checked on her progress, sometimes inviting her to small lunches where they spoke not as councilman and citizen, but as friends. He encouraged her, listened to her struggles, and reminded her that her dream mattered. To Maya, he became more than a leader, he became a mentor, someone who believed in her when she sometimes struggled to believe in herself. As time passed, Maya also began speaking at community events more often. At first, she was nervous each time she stood before a crowd. But slowly, she grew confident. She shared her story not for attention, but to remind people that compassion could change lives. Parents thanked her, young people told her she inspired them, and elderly citizens smiled, saying she gave them hope for the next generation. One day, after giving a talk at a local school, a young girl approached her shyly. "Miss Maya, I want to be like you. I want to help people too." Maya knelt to the girl's level and smiled warmly. "You already can. Helping people doesn't always mean saving someone in the street. It can mean sharing your lunch, listening to a friend, or standing up for someone who feels alone. You can start today." The girl's face lit up, and Maya realized in that moment how much her life had truly changed. She wasn't just chasing her own dream anymore, she was inspiring others to believe in theirs. Months later, as her nursing graduation approached, Harris invited her to another event. This time, it wasn't a grand hall with politicians and reporters. It was a gathering at a community center, filled with families, children, and neighbors. Harris stood at the front, speaking about the future of the community, about education and opportunity. Then, he introduced Maya. "This young woman reminds us all what it means to act without hesitation, without expecting reward," he said proudly. "She is proof that one person's choice to help can ripple across an entire community." Maya Williams is not only my rescuer, she is my friend, and she is a symbol of hope for all of us. The crowd cheered as Maya stepped forward. She looked out at the faces before her, ordinary people, just like her, and felt a deep sense of belonging. I never thought helping someone would change my life, she began, her voice steady. But it taught me something important. We don't need titles, wealth, or fame to make a difference. All we need is the courage to care. That's something all of us can do, every single day. Her words brought the audience to their feet. Harris smiled, pride shining in his eyes. For Maya, it wasn't about applause anymore. It was about sharing the truth she had lived. When she finally graduated as a nurse, Harris attended the ceremony quietly, sitting in the back so as not to take away attention. Afterward, he congratulated her with a handshake and whispered, "I knew you could do it." Maya's life had transformed completely, but she never forgot where it started, on a city street, with a simple choice to help a man in need. What began as an ordinary night had turned into a journey of courage, growth, and hope. She carried that lesson into every patient she treated, every child she encouraged, every story she told. She had once believed she was invisible, just another worker in a crowded city. But Harris had shown her that her voice mattered, and through her actions, she had proven it to herself. Years later, when people spoke of Councilman Harris, they remembered his policies and leadership. But they also remembered the story of the young woman who saved him. And when they spoke of Maya Williams, they didn't just remember the waitress who pulled a man to safety, they remembered the nurse, the speaker, and the woman who turned a single moment of compassion into a lifetime of service. Maya's journey was not about fame or recognition. It was about one truth that she carried with her always: kindness, no matter how small, has the power to change lives. And sometimes, in ways we cannot imagine, it can change the world.